An entitled Karen steals my breakfast on a cruise line, demanding that I give my breakfast over to her. So I decide to maliciously comply by allowing her to eat it, despite the fact that I had packed that food full of hot sauce beforehand. And I've honestly never been happier to unintentionally give out revenge to anybody in my life. Here's what happened. Okay, so I was on a cruise, and it was the first morning of a 2-week trip to New Caledonia and back. Also, it was my first solo vacation. Now, I'm a chunky guy, and I do love a good buffet, but especially a breakfast buffet. It's the pinnacle of human civilization, and I think it's the greatest achievement of humanity. Anyways, this morning I attacked the buffet with everything that I have. And one small note, as it will be important later on, is that I'm vegetarian, and I have been for about 30 years. And no, I'm not pushy or judgmental about it, and nearly all my close friends eat meat, but it's just not my thing. So I got myself 2 plates loaded with food. I also noticed that the Mexican food station of the buffet had a wide variety of hot sauces. So, as a man who likes his food a bit spicy, I thought I'd try just a little bit of everything. I found a table, I put my plates down, and then I ran off to get some coffee, some water, and some orange juice. And as you can probably tell, I wanted my first cruise breakfast to be as big and as epic as possible. Anyways, I come back 3 minutes later, and sitting at my table about to dig into my plate of food is the entitled Karen of this story. I look at her and I say, "Excuse me, ma'am, but that's my food. I literally just went to get coffee." She looks at me and says, "Could you let me have it? You're young and you can stand in line. I'm old and I can't get around well like I used to. I would appreciate it if you would let me eat your food." Now, this was my first day on a vacation, and I didn't want to mess it up by starting a fight with an old lady over free food. So you know what? I just let her have it. Also, I'm a bit of a germaphobe, and a person that I don't know had a knife and fork in my food, so I wasn't going to eat it anyways. I looked at her and I said, "Okay, but I must warn you, I used a lot of hot sauces on that, so the food may be a little bit spicy." She looks at me and says, "That's okay. I've been around the world. I can handle spicy foods." And with that, I went back around hitting up all the different stations of the buffet, and this time filling up a single plate. As I'm in line for an omelet, the same entitled Karen comes up and starts ranting. She says to me, "Are you trying to unalive me? There were so many hot sauces in there. Your meal wasn't fit for human consumption. And why didn't you get any bacon? What kind of person doesn't have bacon for breakfast?" She then kept complaining to literally anybody who would listen to her about how I was trying to take her out with the hot sauces, and how my food, which I picked for myself by the way, was completely inedible for her. So I just grabbed my omelet and I found a new table. I felt bad all my other food was wasted, but thankfully this was a big ship, and I didn't have to deal with this entitled Karen ever again. Okay, this story's hilarious to me because you literally got revenge on this lady without even meaning to. For starters, who in their right mind would walk up to someone's plate and be like, "I'm gonna eat all of this. This is my food now. I'm old. You can get more food." Like seriously, what is wrong with her? Like at this point, she deserves to eat all those hot sauces. Did she really think it would be a good idea to walk in there and be like, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna take the first person's food that I can see"? Like, I don't know about you, but that's the last thing on my mind when I go to a buffet. I don't want someone else's plate. I want my plate. Like, was she literally sitting around waiting for someone to put down their food and be like, "Okay, now's my time to strike"? Like, what is wrong with her? Why not just get in line and get your own thing? Or even ask like a staff member to be like, "Hey, I'm old and I can't walk. Can you please make me a plate? I would really appreciate it." Because that would have made so much more sense than stealing from somebody else who you literally just met. Like, why take his food when you can quite literally get your own? It really just doesn't make any sense to me, and I think she got exactly what she deserved. So honestly, I'm kind of glad in your taste of food, because the fact that you put all these hot sauces on this without this Karen knowing, in my opinion, is absolutely hilarious, and overall is 100% deserved. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for telling my sister to stop expecting me to play baby daddy for her child? Because right now, I feel like she's asking way too much of me, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so my twin sister, who we will call Mary, has a 1-year-old son that we will call Lucas. Now, for a bit of backstory, she had a horrible pregnancy right from the first trimester and had to quit her job since she was spending too much time out of the office. Her ex-boyfriend turned out to be a massive piece of garbage who claimed that Mary had cheated on him and pinned the baby on him. And when my family insisted on taking a paternity test as soon as the baby was born, he agreed but went out for some milk before the due date. After Lucas was born, finances became too tricky with a newborn and with Mary's postpartum complications. She then asked if I could let her stay with me temporarily so she doesn't have to pay rent, and I disagreed. I have an extra room in my house, which I inherited from my grandma, so I don't have to worry about rent either. Well, long story short, it's been tough living living with a baby whose mother needs so much more help than one person can provide, and our parents live too far away to be of any help. Anyways, I didn't mind waking up half the time to give Lucas his bottle, or staying with him when she needed some time to herself. I also paid for everything baby related. Things like the hospital bills for the both of them, the food, clothing, diapers, I mean you name it, I bought it. But now that Mary and my nephew are stable enough that she has now resumed working, she started pushing for more. She expected me to keep paying for everything, but I told her it's harder now that I'm not putting in as many hours and I get paid hourly. But even still, she buys nothing and I end up paying anyways. She also thinks it doesn't make sense to pay for daycare when I'm home most of the day, but I ended up paying for it myself when she wouldn't. So on Monday, she asked me to take Lucas to his hospital appointment, and I just said no. I told her to take the day off for that because my job hasn't been doing well lately as I've been spending too much time taking care of Lucas. She pointed out how this is my nephew, and if I adopt kids, I will need to make sacrifices too, to which I said, okay, I will make them when the time comes, but I'm not Lucas's dad, and although I'm happy to help where I can, I shouldn't be expected to change my life for him. So Mary took a day off, but since the appointment, she hasn't spoken to me except for saying a yes or no answer when I talk to her, and she's been keeping Lucas in her room when he's not at daycare. Now, I love the little guy with all my life, and I'm wondering if maybe I took things just a little bit too far. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? No, you are not the jerk because honestly, it really seems like she's taking advantage of your kindness. Let's look at the facts here. You literally let her into your house and you said, okay, I will help you out and I will help you get back on your feet. But like, couldn't you argue that now she definitely is on her own feet? She has a job, she's working, and she now, at least to me, seems like she's ready to take care of her kid by herself. Like, I'm just as compassionate towards anybody else when it comes to being like a single mom or dad. Like, I can only imagine how hard that must be, and truly, my sympathy goes out to Mary in the story. But at this point, it really seems like she's taking advantage of your kindness, and she's trying to force you to step in as the father when you definitely never signed up for that. You're just trying to help her on hard times, and that's literally all you wanted to do. So no, I don't think you're the jerk for saying no, and I honestly think it's a good idea that you set boundaries, because the way she's being demanding and now giving you the silent treatment, in my opinion, is so uncalled for, and you definitely do not deserve that, especially considering all the things that you did for Mary as well as her son. Am I the jerk for not telling my sister that I ran into her ex-husband while I was shopping at Target? Because right now she feels offended, but I'm just left scratching my head if I did something wrong, because right now I really don't know what to do. Okay, so I'm a 30-year-old male, and I got a call at about 12:30 in the morning from my sister who is a year older than I am. She led the conversation with confirming details for a thing that we have later today, and I'm confident that that was just a lead-in because we didn't discuss anything different from what we had already confirmed earlier in the day, so to call me after midnight for that was really not a likely excuse. Well, I didn't have to wait long to find out what the true reason was for her calling. A few months ago, I ran into her ex-husband at a Target self-checkout. The two of them got divorced about a year and a half ago, and they are amicable, but they both seem to hold on to some unresolved feelings. Now, for reference, he and I have always gotten along, and he's also well-liked by family in general, although my younger sister has expressed to me that she has harbored some resentment for some of his behavior around the time leading up to the divorce. I wasn't privy to the details, and I generally have some grace for people not showing up as the best versions of themselves, especially during something as stressful as a divorce. So yeah, we ran into each other. We spoke for a few minutes, we hugged, and then we went on our ways. And I haven't seen, heard from, or reached out to him ever since. However, my sister feels offended that I didn't tell her that I happened to run into him. And to be clear, it's not for any safety concerns or anything of that nature. The phrase that she used was that, oh, it got back to her. And I guess he mentioned it to a mutual friend of theirs at some point, and it recently got mentioned to her. She feels offended and thinks it should have been obvious for me to know that I should have mentioned something like that to her, and that she's disappointed that she had to hear it from someone else. Meanwhile, I'm doing my best to be empathetic, but I'm also thinking like, what are you talking about? I didn't think such a random occurrence warranted me being notified by her. If anything, I can see that she's had some highs and lows in the aftermath of it all, so I was probably less inclined to even bring it up, because if you're in the process of trying to get over someone, me bringing them up for an unimportant, trivial reason seems like it could potentially be triggering. Now, as it is, I don't need all of her requests to make sense to me. If my sister wants me to do that for her, it's honestly no problem at all, regardless of if it makes sense in my mind or not. But I had to exit our phone conversation rather abruptly, also I could avoid all of this turning into an argument because I felt like I was being chastised for something I had no awareness of, and I don't think my actions or non-actions were unreasonable or problematic. She's of the opinion that I should have known to alert her her of any interactions I have with either of her ex-husbands. I've never been married, but if the shoe were on the other foot, I can't imagine myself caring that much about it. Am I missing something here? Is there some kind of etiquette or protocol for stuff like this that I'm just not aware of? What should I do? Okay, in my opinion, I don't think you're the jerk here, because it sounds like the interaction you had on Target was really pretty straightforward. Like, this really was not that big of a deal, and I just don't think this warrants her being like, oh yeah, I'm gonna call you at midnight. Like, I don't know about you, but that seems really extreme and kind of like a little bit weird in my opinion. Like, sure, it kind of seems like she does have a lot of things going on, and she clearly has some kind of like negative feelings towards her ex-husband or whatever's going on, but that really should not involve you in the slightest. If you were like meeting up with him and going to like baseball games or hanging out together or something like that, then sure, I think that would warrant you having to talk to her about it and be like, hey, I do have like a friendship with him. But this situation is definitely not that. You haven't gone out of your way to meet this guy. You literally just saw him in the Target self-checkout and that was it. This was literally just a freak incident where you ran into each other in the wild. So no, I don't think you're the jerk at all. And if anything, I think this is just evidence that your sister is clearly still mourning the loss of her marriage. And I think that might be something to consider the next time she comes to you about something of this nature. An entitled jerk makes my life a living nightmare, as he constantly complains that his product he ordered from my company hasn't arrived when he wanted it to. So I decided to maliciously comply by throwing this guy a curveball in a way he will never forget. Here's what happened. Okay, so I've worked my way up the ladder at the company where I work, but when I started, I was a support agent. By the time this story happened, I was a team lead of some kind, but I don't remember which. What matters is that I still worked directly supporting customers, but I also had a fair amount of agency, meaning that I didn't have to ask for permission or assistance to do anything related to my job. We're a software company, but we used to sell a specific small Bluetooth accessory that worked with one of our applications. It came in several bright colors and we sold multi-packs. This was also the kind of device you might need more than one of, and it was a popular gift. One year during the Christmas season, our manufacturer messed up gloriously. They didn't deliver all of the inventory we were supposed to get, and worse, much of what we did get was messed up and had serious defects on them. It was a horrible mess and a serious detriment to our small company, and I was on the front lines of cleaning it up. We wound up severely backordered at the busiest time of year, having sold units that should have been delivered, but that we either never received or found to be defective upon arrival. We had to contact people and let them know their orders would be delayed until after the holidays. Some people wanted refunds and other people wanted their items late. We tried to be helpful and bent over backwards to be apologetic, all while trying to keep this debacle from becoming a catastrophe and incentivizing people not to cancel. There was one man who wanted us to perform magic, however. He wanted his order, our largest multi-pack, and he wanted it now. I don't know how many times he contacted us, but I wound up being the only one to deal with him because he would always be escalated to me. I told him over and over again that we couldn't send his order even though we very much wanted to, so we'd be happy to just refund him. If he wanted to wait, there were many others ahead of him to get their orders. Well, he demanded that he get his order done first, and he didn't really care about anyone else that had to wait. He would berate me and try to literally command me to do as he said almost daily for a while. And this is all no matter how many times I explained why I literally couldn't. Eventually, I opened the spreadsheet where we were keeping our back orders, and I moved him to the very bottom. And sure, I was prolonging my own suffering, but this guy had me feeling very petty. After the holidays ended and upper management waged a nuclear war with our manufacturer, the usable stock started rolling in. I bumped a few deserving or eager customers to the top of the list, but mostly I sent them out to order. This guy is the only one I bumped down, but I had something ready for the next time he decided to scream at me. When he inevitably did, I told him we had stock, but others were receiving theirs first, and we had not yet gotten the colors he ordered in his multi-pack. Now, I was sort of planning to do what I did anyways, but he was kind enough to give me explicit permission. He then screamed at me, "I don't care what colors you send. You're gonna send them to me immediately." And you know what? One of our colors included Susan G. Komen pink. The customer was gloriously smug and condescending when I told him we'd go ahead and fulfill his order right away. He definitely thought he had won some kind of victory, but sure enough, the day his package arrived, he sent me an email complaining about all of it. He said to me, "I know I said I'd accept any color, but really? You sent me, a man, an order of nothing but pink? I want these replaced. Send me something else." Well, I told him that's all we had available for him and that conversation was over. And so, as it was, I never heard from this guy ever again. It took a few years before I brought it up, but I've told that anecdote at workplace meetings a few times, including to my boss, the CEO. And I wouldn't take another support job to save an orphan puppy on Earth, but that story was absolutely worth the misery. Yeah, that That guy was super demanding and incredibly rude. Seriously, all you have to do is show some semblance of kindness, and in my opinion, a lot of customer service people would probably be more than willing to help you out. At least that's how I felt when I worked those kinds of jobs. It's the people that were like really pushy and rude and condescending towards me that left me with a bad taste in my mouth and very resistant to ever helping them ever again. Like seriously, show me some semblance of like decency and like human kindness, and I will go a long way just to make sure you get what you need. But if you're mean and rude and treat me like dirt, or even act like you're like above me and I'm somehow your slave, like that's the fast track to me ignoring your request and literally putting you at the bottom of the list like this guy did. And for the record, no, I don't think that was petty. I think that's karma working its magic, not to mention the fact that you gave him the brightest pink color he could possibly ever not want. So good for you for getting back at this guy in the way that you did, because his attitude absolutely deserved to get shut down. Am I the jerk for not giving my stepsister my great-grandparents' house, as she claims that she deserves it more than me? Here's what happened. Okay, to make a very long story short, my great-grandparents passed away about 20 years ago, and the house had to be torn down to the studs and rebuilt for several reasons. I'm a 24-year-old female. I was living with my mother in my late grandmother's house with her boyfriend, who is now her husband, and his son, who is about 23 years old. But as tension rose between me and her husband, we'll call him Bob for the sake of the story, as well as her son, who we will call Connor, I decided to move out and get my own apartment. I was tired of being disrespected and made out to be a villain because his son was seen as a perfect angel. I would still come to visit my mother often, but I would leave once either of them got home. Eventually, work finally started on the project house, and basically anything that could be done without a specialist, we did. So me, Bob, Connor, and my mom worked on this house for 5 years. There was a lot of debate regarding who would get the house, either me or Connor, but they decided I would get it because I was living by myself and Connor was refusing to pay rent, which was in a contract he signed with my mom and Bob. And they also decided this for a few other reasons, such as that it's my great-grandparents' parents' house. I have been living in my mini dream home, think maybe a 2-bedroom cottage with about 900 square feet for about 4 months now. My stepsister, we'll call her Amy, suddenly comes back into the picture because she will date a guy for a few months and then cheat on him and live with the guy she cheated on him with. And she's done this about 7 or 8 times now. Her child is about 5 years old and has been bounced around with her. Recently, she started calling her father, who is Bob in the story, and asking to move in with him, but he said no, as there's no room for her and a child, let alone her horses. And trust me, she cares more about her horses than her own kid. Fast forward a week, and she's calling again saying, okay, is Sunday okay for him to come pick up the trailer? And Bob asked her where she thinks a huge horse trailer would go, and that's when she says that it's gonna go behind my house. But Bob said that she would need to ask me if that's something that I would want behind the house in the first place. Eventually, she goes quiet. She says to me, can you ask her? She'll just say no to me. But it's like, are you kidding me? You literally just answered your own question. So Bob ends up laughing and says, well, I think she hates me more than you, so good luck with that. Another week goes by and she throws another fit, this time demanding the house. Because according to her, why should I get to live in a nice 2-bedroom house when I don't have any kids or even a boyfriend? Now, her mom, who is Bob's ex, is taking Amy's side and yelling at Bob to give Amy the house. But Bob ends up getting into a fight with the mom about it because it really doesn't seem fair. Now, mind you, I am the only child who has had to work for everything. The house is the only thing I ever got handed to me, and I helped pay for most of it because it was what I wanted. They get whatever they want whenever they want. That is, except for the house. So am I the jerk for putting my foot down and telling my stepsister that she cannot kick me out of my own house? What should I do? You are not the jerk, and I can't believe she even tried to assume that you should leave and she should take it. Your stepsister sounds incredibly irresponsible and very entitled. Like seriously, who's gonna walk up and be like, oh, give me the house, I deserve it, as if her having a baby out of wedlock, as well as cheating on multiple guys, 8 times, somehow means that she's deserving to not only use your property for her stupid horses, but also try to pretend like, oh yeah, I deserve it more than you. But also, can we talk about that for a second? She literally is going from place to place and she still owns horses. Now, I don't know that much about horses. I'm very ignorant on the subject matter, so please take what I'm gonna say with a grain of salt. But I do know people who own horses, and my god, they are so expensive. There is so much time and effort that goes into taking care of those animals that it's honestly amazing to me that someone who sounds this irresponsible even has one horse to begin with, let alone multiple ones. Like, wouldn't you think that maybe if you're having problems, it might be time to sell the horses or at least give them to somebody else? And sure, I get it, they're more than pets, they're like part of the family and all that stuff, but this lady that's being described in this story honestly fits the bill as somebody who not only should not have kids, but also should not be owning large animals like that. So no, you are definitely not the jerk for putting your foot down, because in my opinion, her behavior is incredibly inappropriate. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist at the top of the description. And if you want some chill music to put on in the background, check out easymode.com. If you like Am I the Jerk, subscribe to Am I the Genius. Everything will be linked down below in the description.